75 billion cubic meters of water rush through this narrow strait every single year, creating a treacherous swirling barrier that has swallowed entire fleets. This is not merely a channel. It is a violent geographic wound separating Europe from Asia, a churning dividing line that has dictated the fate of empires for 3 millennia. The currents here are lethal. While the surface water flows south from the Black Sea, a deep, salty undercurrent surges north from the Mediterranean, creating a chaotic hydrodynamic environment that sailors have feared since the days of Jason and the Argonauts. Standing on the Galata Bridge today, you feel the vibration of heavy engines as massive oil tankers fight the physics of this waterway, passing within meters of wooden Ottoman mansions. It is dangerous. This volatile geography is the only reason the city exists at all, serving as the absolute choke point of the ancient world where every silk merchant, crusader, and spy was forced to stop. The story begins with a cryptic riddle whispered by the Oracle of Delphi in 667 BC. She told a Megarian adventurer named Byzas to build his new colony opposite the land of the blind, a confusing instruction that only made sense when he sailed up the Sea of Marmara. He saw the settlement of Chalcedon on the Asian shore and realized they must be blind to have missed the perfect, defensible peninsula directly across the water. Byzas dropped his anchor. He claimed the triangular promontory guarded by the Golden Horn Estuary, a natural deepwater harbor where the tide hits ancient sea walls with a gentle rhythm, shielding ships from the Bosphorus currents. This decision was masterstroke. The Greeks laid the street grid, but it was the Romans who engineered the landscape into a weapon, carving the 7 hills into terraces and fortifying the shoreline against the relentless waves. The city grew fast. By the time Emperor Constantine arrived in 324 AD to rechristen it Nova Roma, the urban DNA was already set in stone, defined by the desperate need to control the sea lanes. The transformation of this peninsula into the capital of the world required engineering on a scale that shattered the limits of antiquity. To defend his new Rome, Constantine and his successors built the most formidable fortifications in human history, the Theodosian Walls, a triple-layered defense system stretching 6.5 kilometers from the sea to the Golden Horn. These were not just piles of rock. They were a complex machine of limestone and brick bands, designed to absorb the shock of catapults and earthquakes alike, standing tall while barbarian armies broke themselves against the ramparts. Invaders failed repeatedly. Inside this shell, the city became a laboratory for architectural impossibilities, culminating in the construction of the Hagia Sophia in 537 AD. 2 brilliant geometers, Anthemius of Tralles and Isidore of Miletus, were hired not to build a church but to enclose space itself. They used lightweight pumice bricks and a revolutionary support system of pendentives to float a 30-meter-wide dome over a square base, a feat that defied gravity and terrified the faithful who stood beneath it. It stood firm. Yet the city's engineering evolution did not stop with the Byzantines. It was violently reinvented when Sultan Mehmed II shattered those impenetrable walls in 1453 using Urban's massive bombard cannons. The Ottomans did not simply occupy the ruins, they rewired the entire metropolis, overlaying the Christian grid with an Islamic complex of social services and markets. The Grand Bazaar rose from the ashes. It became a city within a city, a labyrinth of 4,000 shops and 61 streets covered by lead-lined vaults designed to lock down securely at night like a fortress vault. But the greatest transformation came under the hands of Mimar Sinan, the empire's chief architect, who reshaped the skyline with over 300 structures during his tenure. Sinan was obsessed with light. For the Suleymaniye Mosque, he engineered a ventilation system inside the building that channeled the soot from hundreds of oil lamps into a dedicated filtration chamber, ensuring the frescoes remained pristine for centuries while the smoke was collected to make high-quality ink. As the centuries ground on, the city morphed from a medieval fortress into a reluctant industrial giant, forced to modernize by the encroaching pressures of the 19th-century European powers. The transformation was physical. In the Pira district, known today as Beyoğlu, European architects brought Art Nouveau facades and iron-framed windows, creating a distinct visual clash with the minarets of the old city across the water. The sultans needed speed. In 1875, French engineers cracked open the ground to build the tunnel, the world's second-oldest subterranean urban rail line, hauling bankers and diplomats up the steep hill from the harbor to the financial district. It changed everything. Suddenly, Istanbul was not just a relic of the past, but a node in the modern global economy, linked by the Orient Express to Paris and by telegraph cables to Bombay. The waterfronts were paved over. Wooden piers were replaced by concrete docks capable of handling steamships, and the distinct smell of coal smoke began to mix with the salty air of the Bosphorus. Beneath the asphalt and cobblestones, however, lies a shadow city, a hidden infrastructure of ancient water systems and forgotten passages that still dictates how the modern metropolis functions. The Basilica Cistern is the most famous, a subterranean cathedral of 336 marble columns capable of holding 80,000 cubic meters of water, But it is just one node in a vast, invisible network. We look deeper. Beneath the calm surface of the modern city, speleologists and urban explorers have mapped kilometers of Byzantine water channels that still run dry under the feet of pedestrians crossing busy intersections. These tunnels are dangerous. During the construction of the Marmaray Rail Tunnel, an engineering marvel designed to connect Europe and Asia by rail beneath the Bosphorus seafloor, the project was paralyzed by the discovery of the ancient port of Theodosius. Excavators found 37 preserved shipwrecks in the mud. The engineers were forced to redesign the station box, suspending modern concrete beams over a graveyard of Byzantine galleys, proving that in Istanbul you cannot dig a hole without hitting history. The infrastructure challenges today are less about defense and more about survival, as the city's population has exploded from 1 million in the 1950s to over 15 million people today. This is unsustainable. The sewer system, a patchwork of Ottoman brick tunnels and modern PVC pipes, struggles to handle the torrential rains that flash flood the hilly streets, turning boulevards into rivers. To keep the city from choking on its own waste, massive tunnel boring machines are currently eating through the bedrock to create new interceptor channels, diverting sewage away from the beloved Golden Horn. It is loud work. Above ground, the electrical grid is a tangled web of legacy cables and fiber optics, strung between buildings in the older districts where digging is legally impossible due to heritage protection laws. The city hums. At the massive transformer stations on the outskirts, engineers monitor the load as millions of air conditioners switch on simultaneously during the humid August heat, balancing the grid on a knife's edge to prevent a blackout that would strand millions. Modern Istanbul is a vertical beast, a sprawling forest of concrete and glass that has erupted on the Asian side and the northern districts, far from the protected historic peninsula. The skyline is changing. In the Maslak and Levant districts, architects pointing at models have directed the construction of seismic-resistant skyscrapers like the Istanbul Sapphire, which pierces the clouds at 261 meters. These towers are built on deep friction piles driven into the rock to withstand the inevitable earthquake that seismologists warn is overdue on the North Anatolian Fault. The danger is real. The construction sites here are frenetic, with cement trucks weaving through traffic to pour foundations for luxury residences that promise a view of the two bridges that stitch the continents together. The Bosphorus Bridge, opened in 1973, was the first physical link in history, a gravity-anchored suspension bridge that fundamentally changed the city's demographics by allowing mass migration from the Anatolian heartland. This bridge was followed by the Fatih Sultan Mehmet Bridge and eventually the Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge, forming a high-speed necklace of steel around the city's throat. These are giants. The Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge is one of the widest suspension bridges in the world, designed to carry both 8 lanes of motorway and 2 railway lines, facilitating the movement of freight that bypasses the congested city center. But the most ambitious and controversial project is the proposed Canal Istanbul, a man-made waterway intended to bypass the Bosphorus entirely. If built, it would turn the European side of Istanbul into an island, shifting millions of cubic meters of earth, and rewriting the geography that Byzantine fell in love with nearly 3,000 years ago. It is audacious. Proponents argue it is necessary to protect the Bosphorus from tanker accidents, while critics fear it will destroy the delicate water table and ruin the ecosystem of the Marmara Sea. As the sun sets, casting a cinematic fog over rooftops in the Fatih district, the golden hour drone shots reveal a city that is neither fully European nor truly Asian, but a unique organism fueled by the tension between the two. The ferries churn water. Commuters rush onto the steamers, drinking tea from tulip-shaped glasses as they transit between continents, a daily ritual that remains the heartbeat of the urban experience. The muezzins call echoes off the steel glass of the skyscrapers and the ancient stone of the aqueducts, creating a soundscape that merges the 16th and 21st centuries into a single moment. Time collapses here. Istanbul does not simply preserve its history in museums. It lives inside the carcasses of empires, repurposing the stones of Roman walls for tea gardens and routing high-speed internet cables through Ottoman conduits. This city proves that geography is destiny, and that no amount of concrete or steel can fully tame the strategic value of this specific coordinate on the map. It endures. It has survived sieges, plagues, earthquakes, and political revolutions, absorbing each trauma and adding it to the layers of sediment beneath the streets. Istanbul is a testament to human resilience, a place where the past is not a memory but a foundation, constantly bearing the weight of the future being built upon it. The wind blows. As long as the water flows through the Bosphorus, the world will continue to revolve around this eternal city.